throughout elementary school and middle school, saying a girl like that would never fall for a nerd like me. But still, I sent cards every Valentine's Day, and once we got to high school, I was too brave and asked her out. Never in my wildest dreams did I think she'd actually say yes. But she did. She agreed to be my girlfriend. I suddenly became the luckiest boy in the world. We've been dating for 6 months so far, and it's been the dreamiest 6 months ever. I'm completely in love with her, and I think she loves me too. Maybe one day she'd even become my wife. I hope so. We go on a date every Friday night, and sometimes even on Sundays. I have quite a big allowance, and I used to spend it on books and video games, but now I spend it all on Emma, and it makes me so happy. But my father is quite wealthy and respected in our town, so
You're having the worst day ever.
my surname,
It'll still make you smile.
it always makes space for Emma.
She's not just beautiful.
On
She's
Sundays,
smart
we usually
too.
go shopping. I won't lie, I'm not the biggest fan of malls, but Emma loves them. She could shop till she dropped, so I usually go with her and treat her to some special things. I mean, what else am I going to spend my money on? My girlfriend deserves the best. Her 16th birthday was coming up, and I was planning to buy her a diamond bracelet that I'd seen her eyeing up in the mall. I knew she'd love it. So, the week before her birthday, I went to the shop and bought it. And then I decided to get her the matching necklace and earrings too. I wanted to make it the most amazing birthday for her, and thought that the gifts might not be enough. Maybe I could surprise her somehow too. So then I hatched a plan. I told her I had to go away with my parents the weekend of her birthday because my cousin was getting married. She said it was okay. She would just spend it with her girl. This was going to be the best surprise ever. The day of her birthday finally arrived, and that morning I ran around buying her favourite handcrafted chocolates from Switzerland and the most beautiful bunch of 100 roses. I wrapped the jewellery up in a velvet box and tied it with a bow. And around lunchtime, I set off for her house. I was feeling quite nervous as I got closer to her house. What if she'd already left with her girlfriend? Or what if she didn't like the gifts? I couldn't remember if she even liked roses. Oh no. I told myself to stop worrying, and eventually I reached her place. I could hear voices coming from the backyard. I was relieved that she was still here. I had planned to knock on the front door, which is how they normally do it in the movie, but I figured I could improvise a bit to surprise her in the backyard. I tiptoed along the wall and stopped to check everything was in the right place. Then I heard her beautiful laugh. I thought that so much. I got ready to turn the corner and shout, "Surprise!" when suddenly I froze in my tracks. I heard my name. She was talking about me. I wonder what she was saying. I bet she'd just been saying what a wonderful boyfriend I was, and that she was so sad I was missing her birthday. But then I heard all her friends laughing. One of them asked her why she's even dating a dork like me, and that it's clearly not for my good looks or fun personality. Then another friend interrupted before Emma had even replied to the first friend and asked if I had a brother. Then they laughed again and said, "Yeah, but Freddie's brother isn't stupid. He'd never fall for a gold digger the way Freddie fell for me." Then she said, "Can you believe Freddie actually thinks I like him? I mean, we all know it's his money I like. I bet he'll even have gotten me something with diamonds for my birthday. You girls all need to get yourself a rich boyfriend too. It's the best." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just stood there in shock, my mouth wide open. I felt like I was frozen in place. But I couldn't just stand there and do nothing. What do you think of this story? Are you ready for part 2? Hi, I'm Freddie. You might remember me as the guy who got fooled by a gold digger girlfriend. If you missed the first part, please click here to watch it. In that part, I told you how I found out this bitter truth about my girlfriend that I loved so much. Finding this out while I was about to surprise her on her birthday was heartbreaking. That day, I'd overheard her making fun of how she tricked me into thinking that she likes me, while in fact she was only putting up with me for my money. I mean, my parents' money. I'm only 18. Anyway, to say the least, I was devastated and miserable. I couldn't believe that the girl I was in love with and thought of as my future wife was in fact very shallow and materialistic.
What is killing me the most is feeling like I'm such a fool for not noticing any of the red flags that were in front of me the whole time. That day, I was walking away, and I heard them laughing loudly and making fun of how clueless I was. I went back home, feeling distressed, and kept trying to comprehend how she could pull such an act on me with dazzling proficiency. The more I thought about it, the more angry I became. But unfortunately, I somehow still felt that I loved her. Despite learning that she's someone different from who I thought she was, my feelings for her just couldn't change that easily. And I kept thinking of what will happen to me if I break up with her, and how much I'm going to miss her eyes, her smile, her voice, and everything about her. However, I wasn't going to be weak, because I couldn't allow her to control me any longer. I felt hurt, and wished I could talk to someone, but I decided against it. I mean, I wasn't ready to be humiliated for being so simple-minded in front of anyone anymore. I've had my share from my beloved girlfriend, and I don't want to be the victim. Meanwhile, I didn't say anything to Emma. I wanted her to think that I still had no idea of what she's really after. That is why I wasn't going to break up with her and give her the easy way out. Instead, I needed to give her a taste of her own medicine. So I decided to drastically change the way I treated her. Since she was whining about the way she puts up with my personality and how she can barely stand me, I was about to give her an even bigger challenge to put up with. As a start, I sent her a happy birthday text after a day had passed, saying, "Happy birthday, sorry I forgot, haha." And when I saw her, she was expecting a big gift from me, which of course she wasn't going to get. Instead, I told her that I got her something sentimental, and I gave her a flower that I had picked from our backyard. The look on her face was priceless. She was so confused and mad. I asked her what was wrong, and she couldn't say a word. I then told her that I knew that our love went beyond material things, and that's why I got her something simple to express my feelings. Emma looked at me like she was about to kill me, and with a fake tone, she said, "Thank you, baby." Seeing her upset felt uneasy, and I found myself sometimes wishing it was just a bad dream that will end, so that I can stay with her forever. I really did love her. Despite this, I convinced myself that I should go on with my plan for my own good. I started to treat her very poorly, or let's just say, treating her the way she deserved. I stopped checking up on her, always told her that I was too busy and didn't have time to meet or talk on the phone, and whenever we spoke, I only spoke about myself and my family. However, what made her angry the most was that I stopped buying her expensive gifts. I played it smart, and I kept her thinking that I will buy her the things she asked for. I told her yes to everything she wanted, but never actually bought it. This played its role in keeping her hopeful so that she would stay with me, and it worked. Weirdly enough, her attitude changed in an unexpected way. She started acting way nicer to me. For example, she started using what's so-called magic words in children's books, like sorry and please and thank you. She even started to care about how I was and what I was up to, which made me still feel like I have feelings for her. But the truth was that Emma thought to herself that I had lost interest in her, and she was desperate to earn it back, and that's why she acted that way. But to her misfortune, I was as cold as ice, and I didn't give her the attention she was thirsty for. At some point, I felt like I was satisfied with how things were going, as I was wasting her time with me, and she was putting up with everything, thinking she was getting something materialistic in return. By then, I could also see that Emma wasn't the girl for me, and being in love with her was crazy on my part. And to be honest, I'd had enough of her, and didn't really want to see her anymore. Therefore, I decided to set up a plan that will surely make her disappear in a heartbeat. I told her that I was going to take her away for the weekend to my father's hotel. I informed her that many high-profile people will be there, because it's a fancy party. I highlighted the word fancy, and told her that she should look as graceful as possible. You have to see Emma's face. She was too excited to hear that, and started to get herself ready for the big event. She packed all kinds of expensive stuff that I got her, dresses, jewellery, shoes, and more. When Emma arrived to the hotel, she looked very impressed with how fancy it looked. But what she didn't know is that it was the moment I was going to make her feel sorry for using them. I asked the hotel service to take the bags to the room, and told Emma that we needed to talk. She looked a bit puzzled, but she agreed. The first sentence I said, completely left her in shock. Emma, I'm not going to buy you anything anymore. But then she asked why. Oh, I was waiting for that question. I then told her that I knew all about her using me for the money and that I will end everything between us. Emma frowned and said, "All right, Freddie, there may be some truth to that, but my feelings changed for you after a while. I became very attracted to you. I wanted your attention so badly, and I kept thinking about you the whole time. It's like I suddenly started to fall hard for you." I looked at Emma and told her that I'm afraid that she won't stay with me much longer because I'm breaking up with her. And I added, "Not only that, Emma, you're also not getting your bag back, since everything you have in that bag is what I bought for you with my money, and you obviously do not deserve it." By then, Emma was sobbing with tears and said, "I'm really sorry, Freddie. I don't care about the bag or the money. You can take it. I really love you and want to be with you. Please, let's forget the past." To be honest, hearing these words from her made me feel something that I had never felt in my life. I felt powerful. The more she begged me to stay with her, the more I lost interest. And I thought to myself, she felt exactly like I did when I was running after her all these months. I guess we're not that different after all. At that moment, all my anger disappeared, and I looked at her with pity and realized that what she did was out of human nature to want what we don't have. And I understood how childish it was to take her bag as stupid revenge. She taught me an important lesson that was more valuable than the few $1,000s I'd spent on her. After all, in the end, I was sitting in my dad's hotel, and a few $1,000s meant nothing to me. So I decided to give her the bag back and even thanked her, because what she did just made me a man. Sometimes the best way to obtain something is not by trying too hard, rather to simply let it go.
Limits are meant to be pushed. It's the only way progress is made. Some prefer to pace themselves. But I choose to floor it. Chase down your passion. Never halfway. Hankook Tire.
So powerful and so thin. It's a whole new realm in gaming.
Everybody, my name is Gordon. I'm 17 years old, and for a year already, I've had a girlfriend. Well, I had a girlfriend. I would like to tell you why I broke up with her. I liked Emma very much. She was so fragile, so modest, so beautiful. Most modern girls aim to be in no way inferior to guys, but Emma was pure meekness. She always let me choose which movie to watch or which meal to order, and she never argued with me. I always felt very strong and masculine when I was with her. But as time passed, I started to find these particular qualities pretty annoying. Maybe I just didn't appreciate how lucky I was. But I got bored because she always agreed with me. The only thing that she was painfully strict about was the time that she had to be at home. She was petrified by the very idea that she could come home after 8 p.m. Once, we were stuck in traffic on our way back from the movies, and she sobbed violently all the way home. And she didn't want to explain to me why she couldn't simply call home and explain that she'd be like 15 minutes late. At first, I thought that her parents were very strict, but then I met them at a picnic, and they seemed very nice. Emma's mother was still very beautiful, and Emma looked and acted a lot like her. Very quiet and polite. I doubt she's ever scolded anyone. Emma's father, Mark, made a great impression on me. Very bright, witty, self-confident, and charismatic. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I even tried to compare him to my own father, and my old man totally lost. So, I had taken a lot of pictures on the day of the picnic, and the day after, my mother and I went to visit her sister, my aunt. I've loved Aunt Mary since my childhood, and I always tell her in detail about everything that is going on in my life. So, she knew that I had a girlfriend, and now I told Aunt Mary that I'd finally met Emma's family and showed her the photos from yesterday's picnic. Aunt Mary couldn't wait to see the pictures until she saw Emma's father in one of them. She broke off, and it seemed like her hand was shaking. "Do you know what his name is?" she asked in a strange, empty voice. And when I answered, "Of course, it's Mark," she jumped up and ran out of the room. My mother followed her, and I was left alone in the room, totally clueless. Soon, my mother came back, looking very serious. "She'll be all right," she said, answering my silent question, and then added, "But you have to know something. A while ago, your Aunt Mary knew Mark very well, and it was the most terrible story of her life. And my mom told me that Mary and Mark used to go out together a long time ago, before I was even born. In the beginning, everything was fine, and Aunt Mary was head over heels in love with this brilliant macho guy. But soon, she realized that Mark was trying to control her more and more. He decided what she should wear, which girls she should be friends with, and even which books she should read. And when she tried to object, he became more and more aggressive. When he hit her for the first time, she was ready to leave him, but he didn't want to let her go. He became so nice again, and asked for forgiveness, promising that everything would change. But nothing changed. As soon as Mary thought that everything was back to normal, Mark started to tighten his grip, and everything turned out bad again. Mary tried to leave him, he wouldn't let her go, and the story repeated again, and again, and again. At the end, Mary no longer understood what was going on and what she felt toward Mark, whether she loved him or whether she was afraid of him. She kept telling her parents that everything was great and that they were going to get married, until her older sister, my mother, noticed the bruises on her hands and demanded that she tell her the truth. My mother helped Aunt Mary to get rid of her abuser. They went to the police, and Mary got a court order to keep Mark away from her. But Mary never got over this relationship. Neither pills nor psychologists could help her. Since then, she's been afraid of being in a relationship and has stayed single forever. I was shocked, and as we went home, I was thinking about Emma, her mother, and Mark. I started to realize that he hasn't changed at all. I remembered that Emma's mother was wearing a long-sleeved shirt, probably to hide the bruises from her husband's hands. I remembered how both she and her daughter meekly agreed with him. I also remembered how Emma was scared of being home late, even by like a minute. She was scared to death. I have to confess that when I went out with Emma the next time, I conducted a cruel experiment. We went to the coffee shop where I used to always order a blueberry dessert for her. I thought she liked it, but now I wasn't sure about anything. When we sat at the table, I asked, "The usual?" And she nodded, smiling. "No," I said. "Now it's time for you to try something different. I'm going to get you hot wings." "That's fine," said Emma, and her smile became pitiful. When our order was served, I got up and said, "I changed my mind. We're leaving." Emma got up and took her handbag with no objection. Her smile stayed there, as if it were nailed to her face. It was scary. "Does your father really love it all?" I asked her in a shocked voice, and at that moment, she finally stopped smiling, and I could not hold myself back anymore. I told her everything I had learned about Mark and my Aunt Mary. Emma listened to me without even looking at me. Somewhere deep in my heart, I was hoping that she would say that it was all wrong, that her father was not like that, but she just kept listening. But when I told her that her and her mother have to do something in order to change the situation, and that I was ready to help them, Emma changed. She literally screamed at me that I had no right to interfere with their life, that they were both happy, she and her mother, and that her father just had a stern temper, and if they started to complain, it would ruin his career. I could not believe my ears. I just looked at her in silence, with eyes wide open, and finally asked, Is your mother willing to go through all this humiliation and abuse because her husband earns good money? Emma answered, "You just don't understand." And I swear, she said it with contempt. With contempt for me. Well, Emma was right. I really don't understand these things. That's why we broke up. I can't say it was easy for me, but I don't regret it. Have you or anyone you've known ever met an abuser? Tell me in the comments, and please share this story, because I think it's really important to resist people who try to control other people like this.
Hi, I'm Tessa, and I'm in a total panic. I've never been in such a complicated situation in my life. I have literally no idea how to process this. I need somebody to help me out. But first, I guess you'll have to hear the whole story. 3 months ago, I realized that I badly needed a laptop. I live with my parents. I'm an only child. And we have an old desktop computer. It's like ancient. It takes me hours to do simple homework, and that's just one of the problems. So I really needed my own computer, and I was determined to get it. I chose a relatively inexpensive model, and I didn't have any other expectations from the very start. I knew my family was going through hard times. My father was currently between jobs, and what my mom made was enough to just buy food and the necessities. My only option was getting a summer job and buying it myself. It turned out that it's not that easy for a 15-year-old to find a job in my hometown. From the very beginning, I had a backup option. I have a friend named Laura. Her mom works as a cleaning lady. She's self-employed. People hire her for a day or two and then come back to find that their place looks better than when it was brand new. During the summer, she works together with Laura, and they told me I was welcome to join them. Until the beginning of June, I didn't give them my answer because I was hoping to find something easier and cleaner. And after I was unsuccessful, I finally said yes. And then the summer that every high school girl dreams of started. There were 4 of us working: Laura, her mom's assistant, and me. We walked into a house or an office in the morning, and when we left in the evening, everything was shining. I guess this was not the best choice for my first job ever. First of all, it was exhausting. All I could do afterwards was go home and fall asleep, sometimes even before I reached the bed. But I was determined to achieve my goal. And after all, I learned a lot. If someone at school asks me where I spent my summer, I might say that I spent it outside of my comfort zone. Laura's mom would pay everyone at the end of the month, so the plan was to get the money, which was about half of the amount I needed, and estimate how much I had to work the next month to get what I wanted. And when I got the cash, which was even a little more than I expected, I was so happy and proud of myself. It turns out that it feels so good when your hard work pays off. So it was the end of June, and by that time, my dad still had not found a job. He had spent these weeks at home, sometimes drinking, sometimes just watching TV and browsing through vacancies online, saying there were no decent jobs in our whole town. My mom was not happy with this, of course, so they would fight every other day. And that's what was happening the day I got my first paycheck. I got home, so eager to share this feeling with someone. I saw my parents in the living room, and not even thinking about what was going on, I told them about the money I had earned. My dad was a little drunk and furious about their fight, which was obviously about him not making any money. So he argued with me in a pretty aggressive way, saying that for all these years they fed me and paid for me, and that it was probably time to get some of it back. I could not believe that he was saying that. Neither could my mom. But he was always able to be so convincing. He started talking to my mom about the things our family could buy with this money that we could not afford over the last few months. And he was not aggressive with me anymore. He just asked me to help out the family with tears in his eyes. And of course, I could not say no. Did I regret it? Yes, every single day of July. In June, I only volunteered to work on the big gigs, but now I had to earn almost twice as much. So I started to work with Laura and her mom every time they went on a shift. And it was twice as exhausting. At night, I would cry because I felt like I was betrayed. Dad tried to be nice to me, but he never said he was sorry. Just like everything else in life, that July was over too. My hard-earned money still brought me satisfaction, but this time I tried to contain my emotions and I did not tell my parents. Well, just in case. The amount was just enough to buy the laptop I wanted, and I would even have some left over. I put the money into a drawer in my room and was finally ready to go buy my laptop the following day. Lying in bed, I was imagining how awesome my last month of summer would be. But the next morning, I woke up and found out that the money was gone. And I didn't even have to investigate, since the moment I asked him, my father told me that he took it. This time he seemed sorry. And he started telling me something about the debt we were in and that he needed the money badly since his life was at stake, which I guess was far from the truth. And that the money was already gone, and so on and so on. He said that someday he'd buy me the best laptop out there, but first we needed to get it all together. I don't think I even heard half of what he was saying since I was just shocked. For 2 days, I could do nothing but stay in my room and cry every couple of hours. All that work I had done was in vain. But then I thought it didn't have to be in vain, and that I could just try again. Laura's mom liked my work, and she said I was welcome to work with them anytime I needed. So I got on the phone and gave her a call. August was kind of hazy. I don't think I felt much, and I don't remember a lot. It was all the same routine, almost every day. I don't even think I felt as much stress, just nothing. Then I got paid. I went home only because the store was already closed, and I saw my dad in the living room waiting for me. He was still jobless, and he had started drinking even more. He was drunk, and I don't know how he remembered when I was supposed to get paid, probably because he lost his grip on his own life, but he did. And he started again with his manipulative monologue. He would go all the way from super nice to aggressive and back. He wanted me to feel bad, to feel guilty for taking the money when the family needs it most. That's what he said. Mom would have probably protected me, but she was working late hours. I was very close to giving him the money, but I didn't. I stood up and ran to Laura's house. I spent the night there, and I had an extremely tough choice to make. But after I remembered everything I had done to earn this while my father was home drinking, the next day I went to the store and bought the laptop. Dad tried to act like nothing happened, and he still does, especially when he's sober. But I still have to lock the door at night, since I don't know what he might do to my stuff. I don't think this is normal, and it exhausts me emotionally. But what can I do?
Hello, I'm Alexis, and I would like some cereal.
But if you can have her phone taken this before, you got her phone taken before I even got suspended from school.
Great.
And I could have, like, cause I've been to the date a bunch of those. Could date a bunch of those and not even understand that.
Dad here? Where did you say he was going? Lift? To talk to you about the time my mom abandoned me when I needed her the most. Now, first you need to understand my family was like any other typical family around. It was me, my dad, and my mom. I didn't have any brothers or sisters, so my parents and I grew close over the years. It didn't matter what situation I was in, they were always there for me and put me first. When they were free from work, we would go out and explore. That's what I called it when we used to go out to new places. We'd go and swing on the jungle gym like we were in the safari. We'd go to the museum and discover ancient civilizations. We also went to the planetarium to view new constellations and give them our own unique names. Going to all of these places together built a deep bond between us that I would never have thought could have been broken in a million years. However, that all changed. During my early teen years, I started to feel more sluggish than usual and fell behind my peers. I'd mope around the house, lose my train of thought, and if anybody would ask if something was wrong, I'd answer no. When my parents saw me like this, they grew concerned, so they took me to the hospital. When we first got the diagnosis that I was ill, you could tell how shocked everyone was just by looking at their face. My dad had a look of sadness that I assume every parent would have at that moment, but my mom was different. She looked like she had just seen a ghost. The news concerned me also, but the look on my mom's face scared me more. I had to remain in the hospital a while after that. There were many tests to take and solutions to be made, so when I was finally released from the hospital, I was excited. My dad told amazing and false stories about the adventures he had and promised me that we would go on more now that I was back. Through the laughs and stories, my mom sat quietly, staring blankly out of the window. I tried to get her involved in our storytelling, but sadly, she seemed like she was off in her own distant world. As soon as I made it home, I was so happy in that moment that I wanted to scream and let tears of joy stream down my face, but the only thing that followed was a fit of coughs, more evidence that my illness could easily take a turn for the worst. After everything calmed down, my dad hugged me tight and told me that he was so happy that I was home again. I waved at my mom so that she would join us in our legendary group hugs, but she just walked away. I wasn't sure what was happening, but it was making me sad. Did I do something? It was the only thought that ran through my mind. Days turned into nights and repeated. My mom became more distant from me. The way we passed by each other was like two strangers passing on the street. Every time I tried to spark a conversation with her, her expression turned into disgust as she walked away. I'm not sure if she knew she was doing it or even had control over it, but each time it broke my heart. This all led up to the moment I got up one morning and saw my dad sitting at the kitchen table. He was holding a note in his hand and sighing. He was startled when I caught him and he tried to hide it from me, but I demanded to see it anyway. It was from my mom, explaining how she couldn't be around me or my illness anymore. I cried most of that day and all into the night as my dad tried everything he could to soothe me. Weeks after she had left, my dad did everything he could to assure me that it wasn't my fault. He always tried to keep a smile on his face for me, even though I could tell that he was hurting too. One night, I heard a faint noise coming from downstairs. I snuck down to see what was going on and saw my dad sitting at the kitchen table, crying softly with the same note in his hand. I walked over and hugged him tightly. From then on, we made a pact to face any problems we had together. From our love, a shared determination, and the help of modern medicine, I was miraculously starting to feel like my old self again. A couple of weeks after that, I was finally able to start doing my old activities again. That's when we got the message that my mom was in the hospital. Even considering how she left us and the uneasy feeling it gave me from hearing about her again, we still rushed out of the house to see what was going on. As we walked into the hospital room, it felt kind of surreal to be back. My mom was laying on the bed, and I was so surprised to see her look so lost. At first glance, I thought that she was someone else. She looked so much smaller than before. Her hair was thinning and messy, and her eyes were red and swollen. I'm not sure what she went through when she left, but just by looking at her, I could tell that she'd been through a lot. When she looked up and saw our faces in the doorway, her eyes started to water immediately. "I'm so sorry," she said repeatedly while looking down at her interlocked fingers. My dad was the first to speak as I kept a little bit of distance between us. He walked over and kindly put his hand on her shoulder. She let out a deep sigh, then patted the spot next to her while looking at me. I was reluctant at first, but I eventually sat down. "I know that there are a lot of things that you must think about me right now, but I want to tell you the truth." Another sigh escaped her. "When I was a little younger than your age, my mom became really sick. I didn't know what to do at the time, but I wanted so desperately to help her. We were always close, considering that my dad died before I got to know him. But as time went on, she changed. We used to run around all day and play tag, but now she couldn't even get out of bed most days. We used to go into the kitchen and bake cookies, but now she couldn't even digest solid foods. I hated seeing my mom break down before my very eyes, and I hated myself for not being able to help the woman who helped me so much. She paused her story, reaching out to gently stroke my cheek before continuing. When I saw you in that hospital bed, that same pain came back, and it was like I was a little girl again. I am so sorry that I left you, so sorry that I wasn't there for you, and so ashamed that I couldn't even come back after I was gone. I missed you every day, not able to eat or sleep thinking about you. She paused again, and I guess it finally caught up with me. Her explanation ended, and I could feel the stream of tears rolling down my cheeks onto her hand. The warmth she left there on my face filled my heart. I know I may not deserve it, she whispered, but can you please forgive me? I didn't have an answer as I tried to choke back sobs that were escaping me. All I could do was bury my face into her stomach and cry. We cried together, wrapped in the arms of my father, only hoping that things could go back to the way they were.
Hello, my name is Harry, and I was caught by the police, and my father was one of the policemen who caught me. My mom left us when I was 5, and I've only seen her several times since then. I'm 16 now, and this whole time I've lived with my dad. He was and still is a policeman, and a very good one at that. I was very proud to say that my dad was a police officer when I was a kid, but I realized that it wasn't as cool as I thought it would be. He would always come home late, just watch TV. Every time I tried to talk to him, he would barely answer. More often, he would say 2 words like, yeah, okay. And that was it. Like, if I would ask him to help me out a little bit with my homework, he would say, figure it out yourself. I'm tired. By the age of 15, I kind of stopped talking to him because there was no point in it. He wasn't interested in anything that was happening in my life. But it definitely had its advantages. I could basically do whatever I wanted because he was never home. I could invite my friends over or go hang out with them at any time. Recently, my friend Jason got his driver's license, and his parents bought him a used car. We live in a smallish town, so it was awesome to have a car. Now we didn't have to walk everywhere. If we wanted to get a burger or something, it was just a 5-minute drive instead of a 20 to 30-minute walk. All 4 of us could hang out in his car as much as we wanted, listening to music and hiding from the cold of winter. We loved this car. I also started learning to drive a little bit, usually on the outskirts of town. We got so used to the fact that we never got in any trouble that we started to overdo it a little bit. We would open our windows and speed around really fast, putting our heads out the windows and even putting our tongues out like dogs. We had this long main road in our town that went straight through and outside of it. It was incredibly straight and smooth, and there were barely any cars driving around our town at night. You see where I'm going with this, right? Once, Jason drove through it at full speed, and it was awesome. Especially with the right music on. We were shouting and cheering all the way through the drive, and I begged Jason to let me do it myself one night. Finally, after weeks of begging, he finally said yes, although he really didn't want to let me do it. We drove outside of the city, and I took the wheel. My heart was pumping. I started the car. Soon, we were driving at full speed, with the windows open, feeling the wind, and shouting as usual. Even Jason got chill after a while and began to just enjoy the ride. But then, in an opposite lane, there was a police car. We flew past it, but then we heard the sound of a police siren and saw police lights behind us. I panicked and started to slow down. Jason got very nervous, saying, "What are you doing? Don't slow down." "What do you mean, don't slow down?" I asked. Jason continued, "If my parents find out about this, they will take away my car, and I don't know what else. Just drive." I couldn't believe it. I tried to say that this was incredibly illogical and that we would probably get into even more trouble, especially if it was my dad. But Jason and the other guys continued to shout, "Drive!" So I did. We sped up and turned our car into one of the smaller streets, and then I slowed down again because there were a lot of cars parked. Jason got nervous again and said, "Dude, get out of the driver's seat. Let me drive." I did what he asked. We got out of the car in order to change seats. All of us were scared, and we kind of knew that we were doing something really stupid. But we had no choice but to commit to it. As I'm sure you've already figured out, our daring escape didn't really work out in the end. A police car stopped behind us, and 2 policemen got out of it. Of course, one of them was my dad. He looked at me and I looked at
got
him.
blocked by
He
AI.
saw anger in his eyes, although he tried to remain calm. For some time, we just looked like that at each other. Nobody saying anything.
Hey, that was a lit
I
pass, bro.
started
He went up
yeah,
to the, but my AI went up to the alley.
we were told to wait in the car, but our windows were open, so we heard what they were saying. The other officer said, "Come on, they're just kids. Let's just give them a warning so they won't do it again." But my dad said, "They have to learn responsibility." So all my friends' parents were called. Jason's parents took away his car. But otherwise, we were basically given a speeding ticket, and we were sentenced to several hours each of community service, where we had to clean up our park and stuff like that. I apologized to Jason, and we were able to laugh about it later. The fact that we tried to drive away was mostly ignored because it was our first offense. But it got very awkward with my dad. He wouldn't let me go anywhere and was watching me more closely than usual. So like from 100% scared to 150%.
A picture.
I was angry at him and even stopped saying hello to him. It was worse than it was before. One evening when he was off work, he came to my room and said, "Get dressed, let's go." I asked why, but he didn't answer. I was very scared of what he was going to do next. I couldn't even argue or try to argue because his face was very serious. I got dressed and sat in his car. We drove in silence. Needless to say, this made me even more nervous. Suddenly, we stopped outside a burger joint. We went inside and he asked me what I wanted to eat. I was surprised. We ordered burgers and started to eat. After a very long and awkward silence, my dad said, "Don't do that again." I nodded. Then, after another long silence, he asked, "How are you?" I looked at him and said, "Fine." Then, after another long silence, I started talking again. I told him all about community service and how much trouble my friends got into. Then talked about school and everything that was on my mind. He would sometimes ask something, but mainly he just listened. Afterward, I asked him, "And how are you?" He smiled for a second and then told several funny stories from his work. We drove home. He was silent again. He said, "Let's do this again sometime." I agreed. And, I guess that's the end of the story. After a while, he let me go out more again, but I wasn't completely free, like before. And we're talking now. He tells me stuff, I tell stuff to him. In a weird way, our reckless driving made me and my dad closer. But, yeah, I won't do that again. Have you ever gotten in trouble with the police? Please tell your stories in the comments, and don't drive too fast. It will get you in trouble.
Yeah, that's from.
Hi guys, my name is Daniel. Here's what I want to talk about. My dad went missing for almost a year, and I feel guilty about it. I'll start from the very beginning. My dad was the most positive person on earth. For as long as I can remember, he was always glowing with happiness. But everything changed after one incident about a year ago. He didn't come home from work one night. At first, my mom and I thought that everything was okay, but he still hadn't shown up at 9 o'clock that evening. That's when we began to call our friends and his colleagues. No one knew where Dad could be. Then, Mom found Dad's boss's phone number, and we called him. He surprised us a lot when he said that day, my dad didn't show up at work, and he didn't answer his phone calls. It was then that we really began to worry. What's happening? Where was he all day? We called the police, and 2 officers came to us and started asking us questions about my father. Soon afterward, they found him. He was in the hospital, so my mother and I rushed there. When we got to the hospital and finally saw him, he was asleep. He was covered in scratches and bruises. There were pieces of glass in his clothes, and his shirt sleeve was almost torn off. The doctors said that he had a concussion and could have some sort of short-term memory loss, but everything else was fine. Officers said that they found him outside the city. Looks like he was driving at a high speed, lost control, and his car ended up in a ditch. He was very lucky that he survived this accident. We spent the whole night in the hospital, and when Dad woke up, we asked him what happened, and his answer shocked us. He said that he flew off the road because he was hit by another car. It was a serious allegation, so the police started an investigation. They came to our house a few times and asked a lot of questions. About a month later, they sent us a letter with their expert's conclusion. According to this letter, The car didn't have any traces of paint from another vehicle. To put it simply, no one had rammed my father's car. Dad was angry. He complained about the police in action and insisted that he was telling the truth. But my mom was upset. She believed the police and thought that my dad was lying and hiding something. Besides, where was he all day? Why didn't he go to work? To these questions, he replied that he just didn't remember. So my parents sometimes fought about it. And I didn't know who was right. But I knew that Dad was acting weird. He always covered the windows with curtains. His phone was often turned off. It seemed like he was afraid of something. But he wouldn't say what. In general, the atmosphere in the house was strange. But then something happened that really scared me. I was home after school doing my homework when I heard the front door slam loudly. I went down and saw my father. He looked scared. He had huge eyes and could barely breathe. When he caught his breath, he finally said, "I saw her again! That car!" Then he ran up to the table and began to write something on a piece of paper. He tried to remember the car's license plate number, but he couldn't. Dad was really worked up. He nervously walked around the house saying that Mom will finally believe him now. But she didn't. After all, there was no evidence. So they just bickered again. And I can understand Mom. Her husband is acting strange, obviously hiding something. Of course she didn't believe his words. Since then, Dad has spent a lot of time on the computer. He was Googling something, printing some articles. In the garage, he hung up a board where he attached various photos and documents. He even installed security cameras around the house. Apparently, he was determined to prove to me and my mom that he was right. It looked more like paranoia. But this is my dad. He always goes all out. And so we lived like this for 2 months. In the evenings, Dad sat in the garage and watched the video from the cameras. I kept hoping Dad would admit that he was wrong, or finally tell us why he didn't go to work that day. But once, at dinner, or rather, when I was having dinner with my mom and Dad was sitting in the garage, we heard him shouting, "Bingo! I found it! Ho, ho, ho!" He came into the kitchen with a piece of paper in his hand. He said that the car that hit him got caught on camera, and now he has her license plate number. A couple of calls to his friends at the police station, and the case will be solved. But it only provoked another fight, and this time my father was just on edge. I tried to say that he was wrong. There's so much confusion. Why was that car driving by our house? How did he know it was the right car? What friends at the police station? But he shouted, once he finds out, Mom and I are going to apologize. And left. We heard the car start, and he just left. My mother was very upset. She said that Dad's stubbornness and lies were ruining their relationship, and she was sick of it. But I was more worried about my dad. It's like, where did he go? I had this feeling that something bad was going to happen, and I was right. He didn't return that night. I told my mom to call the police in case he had an accident again, but my mother was so mad at my dad that she wouldn't listen. He was still gone in the morning, so I called the police myself. For several weeks, we talked every day with the officers, looking for him in our city and in the neighboring towns, and we got no results. My father was eventually reported missing. I can't tell you how I felt then. A loved one who filled my life with laughter and positivity just disappeared. I lost my hope and thought he was dead. I grieved deeply. Almost a year later, we got a call. Mom picked up the phone, and then her face changed immediately. Our father was found in another state, in a hospital. We immediately went to him. I could barely recognize my dad. He looked almost like a homeless man. Dirty hair and beard, shabby clothes. As it turned out, he had a mental disorder that was progressing. It wasn't related to the accident, but because of this coincidence, he became paranoid, and the disease developed. Dad remembered us, and he knew where his house was, but he was sure he had to find the people who pushed him off the road a year ago. Now, I feel guilty that my father left that night. He just needed help, or at least to be heard. After all, everything indicated that he was not healthy mentally, but Mom and I just didn't listen to him, and we thought he was lying. Yes, we're both to blame. My dad was hurt because of our carelessness. Now we have a long process of treatment, and everything should be fine. But none of this would have happened if we had just been more attentive.
Oh, somebody was in my stream. I didn't know this. I said somebody was in my stream. I didn't know this.
Oh, don't forget to share this video with your friends. And always be more attentive to your loved ones.
One dude I knew.
2 days only, this Friday and Saturday. Earn a 25-cent Hy-Vee Fuel Saver discount for every $50 you spend. The more you spend, the more you save. Get a 25-cent Fuel Saver for every $50